Welcome back to Kleppers Corner, the only history lesson that makes you feel like you skipped AP US history, but still somehow wound up with student debt. Today, August 30th, is one of those magical dates where human beings said, should we build? Should we burn? Should we conquer? Or should we write poetry about digging bogs? And the answer was yes. Yes to all of it. This date has everything: wars, temples on fire, Supreme Court confirmations, empires collapsing, space shuttles, and even Warren Buffett deciding Dairy Queen is worth more than your house. Buckle in, folks, because August 30th is the historical equivalent of a buffet where the shrimp cocktail is right next to the nacho cheese fountain. Let's dig in. Segment 1, the fall of Jerusalem, 70 CE. When Rome pulled a fixer-upper, Apocalypse Edition. On this day in 70 CE, Rome destroyed the Second Temple in Jerusalem. Think of it as the world's most aggressive urban renewal project. Titus, the son of Emperor Vespasian, stormed the Temple Mount and set it ablaze. Picture HGTV's Fixer-Upper, but with fewer shiplap walls and way more crucifixions. Rome basically said, you know what this holy site needs? Fire, rubble, and a gift shop for gladiators. The internal Jewish factions didn't help. They burned their own food supplies. That's right, even in ancient times, people self-sabotaged. It's like if you're on Survivor and instead of building a shelter, you torch the coconut pile and yell, "That'll show Jeff Probst." The destruction changed everything. Judaism had to reinvent itself, pivoting from temple sacrifices to rabbis and Torah study. Meanwhile, Christianity looked at the flames and said, ooh, prophecy fulfilled, and immediately started drafting its separation papers. The entire religious landscape shifted in a single day. Rome thought it was making a point, but really, it launched the pilot episode of two of the biggest world religions. Segment 2, Second Battle of Bull Run, 1862. The Civil War's worst sequel. Fast forward to 1862, where America said, hey, let's have a sequel nobody asked for. Enter the Second Battle of Bull Run. The Union, led by General John Pope, thought they had Robert E. Lee cornered. Spoiler alert, they didn't. Lee pulled the military equivalent of a TikTok prank. He divided his army, sent Stonewall Jackson on a 55-mile joyride to cut supplies, and tricked Pope into attacking at the worst possible time. By August 30th, Pope launched a massive assault, convinced the Confederates were retreating. Fun fact, they were not retreating, they were waiting. And then Longstreet showed up with 28,000 fresh troops and basically did the Civil War version of dropping the base at Coachella. The Union Army collapsed faster than a Jenga tower in an earthquake. The result? Union forces scurried back to Washington. Pope got fired, and Lee got a golden ticket to invade the North. That's right, this battle directly set up Antietam, the bloodiest single day in American history. It's the rare sequel where the cliffhanger isn't what happens next, but how many people can possibly die in one afternoon. Segment 3, Lenin's Bad Day, 1918. Fanny Kaplan shoots her shot. August 30th, 1918. Lenin gives a speech, leaves a Moscow factory, and bam, 2 bullets hit him. Enter Fanny Kaplan, a socialist revolutionary with the energy of that ex who insists you betrayed them, so they show up at your job with receipts. Lenin survives, but the Bolsheviks used the attempt as an excuse to launch the Red Terror. This wasn't just let's arrest the shooter. No, the Cheka started rounding up anyone who looked at Lenin funny. Opposition parties, clergy, the bourgeoisie, probably even guys named Chad. Thousands executed. It was the Bolshevik version of Yelp reviews. 1 star, everyone dies. And here's the kicker, Lenin kept those bullets in his body, and they likely contributed to his early strokes and death, which cleared the path for Joseph Stalin. So Kaplan's failed attempt basically handed the USSR its future dictator. Talk about unintended consequences. She wanted democracy. Instead, she gave the Soviet Union 30 years of big brother, but make it famine. Segment 4, Operation Deliberate Force, 1995. NATO grows up. August 30th, 1995. NATO decides it's done being the awkward Cold War wallflower and launches its first large-scale air campaign in Bosnia, Operation Deliberate Force, which sounds less like a military operation and more like a CrossFit routine. After years of hand-wringing while Sarajevo was shelled and Srebrenica was massacred, NATO finally flexed. Jets bombed Bosnian Serb positions for 2 weeks, dismantling their defenses and forced them to the negotiation table. The Dayton Accords followed, ending the war. But here's the bigger deal. NATO proved it could exist in a post-Soviet world. Before, its job was stop the USSR. But once the USSR tapped out, NATO had an identity crisis. On this day, it reinvented itself as Global Hall Monitor with Jets. Segment 5, the Moscow-Washington Hotline, 1963. Don't text me, Khrushchev. On August 30th, 1963, the U.S. and USSR launched the hotline. No, not a literal red phone. Sorry, Hollywood. It was a teletype. That's right, nuclear Armageddon was prevented by faxing. Messages had to be typed, translated, and double-checked, which is still faster than waiting for Comcast customer service. The hotline's whole point was to keep leaders from misinterpreting signals and starting World War III because someone sneezed on a radar screen. It first came in handy during the Six-Day War in 1967 when both sides got twitchy about who was bombing who. The takeaway? Sometimes the difference between life and mushroom clouds is a really long text chain. Segment 6, Space Shuttle Firsts, 1983 and 1984, Bluford and Discovery. August 30th has major NASA energy. In 1983, Guion Bluford became the first African-American in space aboard Challenger. Not only did he have to handle experiments and satellites, he carried the entire weight of, hey, NASA's not just for white dudes named Buzz anymore. Bluford crushed it, becoming an icon without ever wanting to be one. Then, a year later in 1984, Discovery launched for the first time. Discovery went on to become the MVP of the shuttle fleet. 39 missions, deployed the Hubble, and lasted longer than most of our favorite sitcoms. August 30th basically said, space exploration can be both inclusive and reliable, which is more than we can say about Congress. Segment 7, Thurgood Marshall confirmed, 1967. Justice served. 1967, Thurgood Marshall is confirmed as the first black Supreme Court justice. The man who argued and won Brown v. Board of Education. 29 out of 32 cases at SCOTUS now had a seat on the bench itself. Talk about upgrading from guest speaker to permanent faculty. Marshall spent the next 24 years being the court's conscience. He fought for the marginalized, the poor, the accused. He basically turned the Constitution into a Yelp review for justice. Equality, 5 stars. Discrimination, 0 stars, would not recommend. His confirmation wasn't just symbolic. It locked civil rights into the DNA of the judiciary. Segment 8, Nations Break Free, 1991 and 1999. Azerbaijan and East Timor. August 30th is Freedom Day. In 1991, Azerbaijan declared independence as the USSR fell apart like a Soviet IKEA desk missing screws. And in 1999, East Timor voted overwhelmingly for independence from Indonesia despite violent intimidation. Both events show how empires eventually get ghosted. No matter how big you are, one day your colonies swipe left. Segment 9, Mary Shelley, Ted Williams, Warren Buffett, Seamus Heaney, births and deaths. This date also gave us some heavy hitters. Mary Shelley, born 1797, invented Frankenstein, which means every Halloween party owes her royalties. Ted Williams, born 1918, batted .406 and then left baseball twice to fight wars because apparently being the greatest hitter alive wasn't enough. Warren Buffett, born 1930, became so good at investing he turned Dairy Queen into a financial instrument. And Seamus Heaney, who died in 2013, reminded us poetry could be about farming, bogs, and trauma. Basically, rural trauma core before TikTok made it cool. In conclusion, so that's August 30th. Destruction, creation, liberation, and the occasional Nobel Prize. A day where the Second Temple burned, a Confederate general got cocky, Lenin got shot, NATO grew up, the U.S. got a Supreme Court justice who actually believed in justice, and NASA finally diversified its roster. Not bad for one date on a calendar. Remember, history isn't random. It's a bunch of bad decisions and brilliant ideas stacked together like Jenga blocks. And August 30th proves that sometimes the whole tower tips over, but occasionally you get Frankenstein instead.